Donald Trump's visit to China. I have video proof of me watching the flag raising ceremony. Don't say I'm not Chinese anymore. Hasan's level is still a bit lacking. One weapons, who cares? Don't buy the best if bought first. How much tangible benefit has been given after so many years? Second, the more one bleeds for the U.S., the worse the living standards and the faster the reunification will come. The darkness before dawn is something we have to endure. As for the Iran Strait, whether it reconciles or not, reconciliation can boost the economy, but without reconciliation, it's just the same. Currently, first, we aren't restricting oil purchases. And second, if global oil prices rise, at worst, we all face inflation together. I guess it's more desperate. He's got such a narrow view. China doesn't care what Donald Trump did before, but what he's going to do now. Between nations, only interest and well-being matter. He fails to grasp a fundamental issue, whether King Novidal's tenure is more beneficial or detrimental to drawbacks. Yeah, the reason why we're in disagreement, which is a unique moment, because Chinese netizens usually love my takes, is because I'm not looking at it just as like what's beneficial for China in the interim. I'm not Chinese. I mean, I love saying I'm, Chinese or white Chinese. I think China has done tremendously well in the last couple of decades, especially. I love Chinese development. I want to implement a bunch of the policies in China. And I think this is a very Chinese attitude to have, which I think a lot of Chinese netizens will agree with me on this, is that to each their own, You can have socialism with Chinese characteristics. You can have socialism with American characteristics. Some of the stuff that work in China might not work in the United States of America and vice versa, right? And China understands that better than anybody else. However, my analysis on, what decisions Xi Jinping is making, which once again, I always will add, is just my own personal analysis. The fuck do I know? I mean, obviously he has many considerations here. He is responsible for the well-being of 1.4 billion Chinese people, right? First and foremost, as opposed to my assessment, which is a more internationalist framework that I'm operating off of, is that there are going to be, my assessment comes from an internationalist framework. Xi Jinping's assessment and the Chinese netizens' assessment here is most likely coming from a, pro-China perspective. They're Chinese. He fails to grasp a fundamental issue. As for other negotiable issues, let's leave them to King Know-It-All. At least we must secure the midterm elections of founding. Otherwise, how are we supposed to engage in political battles with the Democratic Party for the remaining 2+ years? What do you think? This round is just a safe face for Donald Trump, but there's probably little consensus in actual deals. Donald Trump's credibility can't be redeemed with a shared bike. Hasanabi's superficial understanding of China is still better than most Americans' perception of China, which shows how deeply the average American public misunderstands China. Because Donald Trump is someone who, if you give him an inch, he thinks he could take a mile. So you need to strike a balance where you don't give him too much leeway, yet he can't find fault with you. Make them feel valued, but don't demean yourself. There's like one of these. I feel like the Chinese negotiation techniques are pretty similar to the Chinese Empire's negotiation techniques in some respects. One of the things is if your enemy is weak, then flatter him. If your enemy is strong, then diminish him. Okay? If you have a strong foreign adversary that you are meeting, you try to embarrass them to the best of your ability by doing certain things so that they feel unwanted and no longer can negotiate from a stronger position. If your enemy is, or if your adversary is a weakened adversary to begin with, you holy Orientalism, dude. This is the one area where I feel like it's not Orientalism. I would go so far as to say Confucianism as a principle has remained calcified in many aspects of Chinese governance and Chinese culture, and it's been thousands of years at this point. Is not Orientalism. It's just an accurate assessment as a white guy from afar. Okay? This is the one area where it's not Orientalism. Like they do really ride for this shit, and they have seen some of the benefits of this as well. I hate all the Western news article says she's court the dragon. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm not doing that stuff at all. But to varying degrees, like Confucianism's cultural relevance and significance has remained, right? But so I think that's the goal here. The flattery for Trump on the one hand, like the direct flattery for Trump, has worked. It has worked because they know exactly how to play him like a fiddle. Okay, they know. China, more than anybody else, obviously values diplomacy quite a bit, values stability quite a bit, And they know exactly how to flatter Donald Trump. And it worked. I don't even think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I want to chart a different path forward with China. One that is collaborative in nature. One that is not creating unnecessary tension, unnecessary friction. One that revolves around cooperation, mutual respect for one another, understanding one another's goals and ambitions. Whereas the American perspective for the longest time has been single-minded, singularly focused on waging war with China. Well, now China is so strong that even many American analysts are starting to recognize that we might have to bite off a lot more than we can chew. Okay? That's the reason why you're hearing from so many different American analysts and people that have worked in the CIA, people that are former generals, that this is an unbelievable mistake. You're putting good money after bad if you think that you can actually catch up to China with all the defense bloat that we have. I think that Chinese development might yield a more peaceful path, a more peaceful future by force. But when I say by force, I don't even mean by like direct military intervention or like going to war with China directly. I mean by force as in like creating enough leverage and enough deterrence with your vast forces and with your productive capabilities that you cause the United States of America to second guess, and you cause the United States of America to make more restrained choices in its military adventurism all around the world, and certainly against China. This is a good thing, not a bad thing. So on that note, let's get into all of the coverage from my favorite subject, obviously. Trump meets Xi Jinping in high-stakes Beijing summit. So I have a very different approach, I think, than many Democrats do, certainly on this issue. I think this is good. I think this summit so far has been very good. It's been good for a couple different reasons. One, a lot of Fox News people finally went to China and got to experience like regular, everyday Chinese experiences. And showing that to boomers is probably really good because boomers think China is a peasant country. Okay? Obviously, every single person in my community has a very different attitude because I literally went to China. I talk about China quite a bit. I talk about Chinese development quite a bit. So you've actually seen it. Okay? You've actually seen it personally when you watched me do live streams in China, right? In Beijing, in Shanghai, in Chongqing, in Chengdu, and also in Hong Kong. But most Americans think China is run by an agrarian peasant society that is still working at the rice paddy. It is backwards. That's like not dissimilar to the DPRK, and our understanding of DPRK is probably also different than what the DPRK looks like as well. Obviously, I'm not, saying it's fantastic, but like Americans are very sheltered when it comes to the way that they learn about our foreign adversaries. So when you have Brett Baer on Fox News in prime time going up to like Chinese stores and being like, look at this is a robot serving me a sausage, a lot of boomers are going to be like, oh my God, they are so goddamn advanced.
Inside. This is the first of its kind for this kind of interaction. If you want to order something, hello, can I get a sausage, please?
Okay, 8.8 yuan.
This is inside.
Oh, baby. Yeah, also, there's a really funny, there's a very funny clip of Brett Baer has been the hero of this trip, okay? It's been very funny watching him go through the motions of like everyday Chinese existence. It's really funny. While Fox is complaining they got a ticket for illegal parking, this is what his team is doing. Beijing residents spotted this and uploaded to Douyin. Fox News Brett Baer filming in the middle of busy traffic. By the way, that is insanely dangerous, okay? Even walking on regular sidewalks without paying attention to scooters whizzing by is dangerous. And this is on the bike lane. I don't even know. This is probably one of the most dangerous things Brett Baer has done in his career. And I'm telling you, as someone who was there, even walking on the sidewalks without paying attention to the electric scooters that are unbelievably silent, whizzing past you at like 30 miles an hour, the fact that he's walking in the middle of the goddamn bike lane is insane to me. Okay, those mopeds, they're gonna take him out. An 85-year-old Chinese auntie is going to kill Brett Baer. People complained about getting a ticket. They complained about flock cameras. Well, the Chinese version of flock cameras. That's also very funny. A couple things that I obviously also experienced was like that there is definitely a lot of surveillance that's in your face in Beijing, especially. Definitely in a lot of major Chinese cities as well, but certainly in Beijing, there's an environment of tension. Beijing is a very, I would say, uptight city in comparison to many of the other Chinese cities that I experienced. Shanghai is very Western facing. If you're really into like a Western cosmopolitan, there's something for everybody in China because it's so vast, it's so large, and there are so many significant cultural differences from city to city. If you like Western style cities, you will love Shanghai. That was, Austin's favorite. Or Hong Kong as well, if you like, Hong Kong cinema, for example. I liked Chongqing and Chengdu the most. Probably Chengdu was my favorite because there are very different, like very distinct cultural attitudes in these different cities. And I think Chongqing and Chengdu were, like real Chinese cities as opposed to like Beijing is basically like Washington, D.C. in many respects. It's very uptight. It's very serious. And there is definitely an environment of tension where you're like, I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to do something wrong here. And I didn't feel that way in Chongqing or Chengdu at all. Nah, Beijing is a really real city. No, it is a really real city, but it's also, it's the heart, right? Perhaps I didn't get a good shake of Beijing as well because it was the first city that we were in. Maybe we were tense for that reason, but that was my experience with Beijing. It's just very, very uptight, very corporate, or very, not even corporate necessarily, but just like very party centric, if that makes sense. Now, there's a distinction here, okay? American surveillance is covert. Chinese surveillance, on the other hand, is overt. Chinese surveillance is in your face. American surveillance is not so much in your face, with the exception of flock cameras and things like that, right? And I find that very interesting, okay? Obviously, Brett Baer is, America literally does this already law. You can get a ticket in a mall in multiple cities due to automated cameras. Yeah.
In fact,
Fox News crew in Beijing got ticketed by CCP surveillance cameras after illegally parking for just 2 minutes. I have a lot of opinions on this. Okay.
In fact,
because on the one hand, the overt surveillance that's like constantly in your face in Beijing, especially, is an interesting culture shock for many Americans. And yet the things that they're complaining about here are things that Fox News would absolutely want. Like Fox News viewers would actually want here American style. And in some respects, it already exists in the United States of America. You think the Fox News boomers don't want a permanent surveillance state to ensure that every single criminal is instantly booked and ticketed and actually go to prison? What are you talking about? What the are you talking about? You're mad that they have Insta cameras and Insta ticketing options. Okay, you're telling the boomers the wrong lesson. Because if you were an American boomer and you didn't have these racialized hangups because they're doing it Chinese style and therefore scary, you would look at this and go, wait, what the fuck are you talking about? The cities are clean. There's no homelessness. There's no visible crime at all. Great. That's what I want. That's utopian. From the perspective of the white suburban boomers, right? They literally want that. So it's really funny when these guys look at what China is doing, when it's like, these are things that I'm critical of China, where I think it's like a little bit too strict. The social engineering that takes place in China is far too strict for my taste. I'm a social libertarian in many respects as a Westerner, right? This is the culture that I grew up in. This is the opinions that I have. But those boomers, they're Treatlerites in every respect. They would love this shit. They would love the constant presence of surveillance and what that does to crime rates in America, right? The difference, of course, is We have constant surveillance. We have constant surveillance, and yet it is not overt, but covert. We have flock cameras. We have probably a similar level of CCTV density in major cities in the United States of America. We certainly do in places like London, for example. To like the per capita CCTV density is probably fairly high in the United States of America as well. I don't know the exact numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, though, and especially with the new invention of flock cameras and Pegasus Palantir software and AI surveillance. We are doing Chinese-style surveillance. We're doing Chinese-style surveillance here in the United States of America already.
Our driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US because they saw it on the camera. Now, there are real questions what the CCP's goal is about citizen tracking and social scoring. They say it's to make everybody...
Dog, you're there. Stop with the social scoring. You know it doesn't exist, man. Jesus Christ, go talk to any Chinese person, please. Chinese people make jokes about social credit on Chinese social media to make jokes about how stupid Americans are, by the way. They'll literally post that one wall of shame that they have where people crosswalk or people jaywalk on a crosswalk, and it just like poop immediately takes a photo of you and puts it on the wall of shame. They literally post that on Douyin and shit to be like, see, this is the social credit wall that Americans think is, social credit. Also, we unironically do have social credit. They don't. We do. That's what's so funny about it. We're like, oh, imagine having social credits as a system. Imagine having a social credit system. How dystopian. Bitch, we have it. They don't even have it. Every time there's like a regional pilot program that takes 0.4 billion people, okay? And then the federal government's like, we don't like this, nix this program. That's literally what happened with the social credit system. It was for businesses in a certain area. It was a social credit system for specifically businesses in one fucking region. It never got implemented at the federal level, and Americans still talk about it endlessly. If you want actually a federal system that is restrictive and Americans would probably look at as dystopian, look at the hukou system. Okay? That's one area that needs reform, in my opinion. It was perhaps very restrictive at the time, but maybe even beneficial for development. I don't know. And the current system, the current hukou system is just more so about like region locking you for social benefits that you get. Okay. I mean, you just said there was a ton of surveillance. Yeah, no, I know. I'm saying it made me uncomfortable, but boomers would probably love that shit. And boomers probably don't even recognize we have that shit. It makes me uncomfortable in America too. Hukou system is being reformed. A lot of Western leftists don't understand the changes that have been made to it in the past decade. No, I know.
You feel safe. These cameras are watching every minute. They're everywhere. And while they're watching us here in China, we hope you continue to watch. Special report from Beijing.
I say it's so cool we have flock cameras and no high-speed rail or interest in developing our infrastructure. We also literally do have this exact same system. Like I said, we have the flock cameras. We have mass surveillance, like always on, constant mass surveillance and AI tracking on top of that in the United States of America. Anyway, doesn't right-wing Cope hate you? I don't think he hates me as much anymore. I think a lot of people have, a lot of former liberals, like former Destiny acolytes, have over time reformed on their undying hatred for me. And I think part of that is because they realized that like maybe Destiny wasn't the best person and was kind of lying to all of them about a bunch of other shit and just was an overall bad person. So that cleared up some of the negative framing that they had experienced, some of the negative framing that they had seen over and over again about someone like myself. That's what it feels like to me. I think most people are too used to their perceived freedom. In most European countries, the criminal code is super bloated with piracy, even getting you prison time. They don't realize how often they break the law because there isn't strict enforcement usually. Yeah, there's a lot more leniency in many respects in the Western world as well, yes. I think a lot of it is they were genuine in wanting fighters, and the same shift in the base happened with them. There just lives. Wait, yeah. Oh, yeah, that too. One of the main stalkers you had that worked with him turned on him and doesn't hate you, really? Yeah, I know. I think that they just have been burned so much Because Sex Pestini's community is tiny for the most part, but he has a lot of like loyal orbiters that they self-described orbiters that have like they're micro influencers. Some of them actually have like fairly prominent platforms as well. And over the years, he's like fucked them over so viciously and in sometimes even like in criminal manner, basically doxing them, humiliating them, bullying them, that many of them realize like, oh, this is like genuinely a fucking bad person. And it caused them to second guess their previous opinions about even someone like myself, because like so much of his community is born around like this built resentment around who I am and what I represent in American politics being like cancerous from their perspective. And he'll go to all lengths to basically disparage and lie about his opposition. And once those guys basically found themselves in a similar predicament where they were also his opposition, they were like, oh, wait, he just fucking lies about everything. He's lying about me this way, so he might have been lying about Hasan as well. And I think that's what caused a lot of people to change their perspective.